Okay, so this is going to be a really quick tutorial for you guys for the SoleSlayer setup. So I'm going to run a little scenario for you. So let's say you have 500 proxies for a shoe release. So what you want to do is, knowing that you can use a 2-to-1 ratio, you can be using these same proxies twice. So you'll be able to use 1,000 tasks for this example. So what I always do is I get my total amount of proxies divided by 2. So you can do 250 tasks per site. So 250, 250, that equals 1,000. And you're going to be using, I always use the first two. I duplicate those proxies and then I duplicate them on this site. So let's just run a little quick example here. Always name your title the site that you're running on. So I always abbreviate it like CS for Champ Sports. Your product link, you can probably leave that blank. For example, checkout profile. Okay. So here's where my example is going to come into play. So here's your example here of 500 proxies. Okay, there's your 500, and you're going to be able to use this proxy twice. Once on Champs, and the other task is going to be on eSpay. Okay. Okay. So and when it comes to how many checkout profiles you can do, you want to divide that by the amount of proxies you're able to use on the site. So say for example you only have 5 debit cards or credit cards. Either you're using your own, borrowing a parent's. I don't recommend using prepaid. I don't recommend using final or privacy. Those aren't, you can't verify that those are the right numbers on the card. So you want to take your 250 and you want to divide it by the amount of cards you have. So if you have 250 proxies to use on Champ Sports, you want to divide that number by the amount of cards you're using. So 5. So you're able to run 50 tasks per profile. Let's do a little example here. Here's one of my cards. It's pick size, 10. So it's default by 1 task, but if you're only going to be running 5 of these things, say if I did this setup here, okay. So here's your little, demo setup, and you're going to do 50. So that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. That's 250. Then you want to come over to your proxies. And there's 2 ways of doing this. You can, I'll show you the method that I use that makes the most common sense to me. Is I'm just going to go to 250 here. Okay, there's your 250. I'm going to copy these. Clipboard, import, 250. Okay. Alright, so these aren't real proxies. I'm just using it for an example. You'd obviously want to do a little test. I'm not going to do it because they're not going to work. And you want to delete the ones that don't work. You should not have banned proxies, but it does happen. It has happened to me. So you want to make sure that everything is set up correctly. Obviously have the right link, and then you want to remember this step here is the global proxy. So if you're on a server, the IP of that server, for example, if you're using Amazon, it's most likely going to be banned by foot sites. So you're going to want to click randomize, and that's going to go to your proxy list, and it's going to pick a random one. So what I normally do is I click it a few times, it picks a really random proxy, save the release. And you always want the tasks to equal the amount of proxies. So your Champs tasks are all set up. Now, referring back to when I started, I said you should use your Champ setup the same as your eSpay setup. So I always copy these and then just edit the release, name it eSpay, change it to eSpay, And then remember this step here. You want to change this. You know, just to be on the safe side, you don't want to use the same proxy because this is the one. This is the IP that's going to monitor the site. Okay, so just click it a few times, and you can use the same information 4 times on foot sites, 1 per site. So just keep these all the same. Go to your proxies, obviously test it, and then save it. So half of your setup is ready. Now what you want to do for foot action and foot locker is very similar. So you want to copy this release. You want to edit this to foot action. I always name it like FA. Change your monitor IP. Obviously put in, you know, foot actions direct link. I recommend going to SoleLinks. I'll show a quick thing for you here. Okay, and here's another common mistake that I don't want you guys to be making is you don't want to be using shortened links because that's just not going to work. When you plug in your links to SoleSlayer or any bot, you want the direct link. So if you just go to, this is an easy one to find. Okay, for example, you don't want to go to here and copy the link. I don't recommend doing that. You don't know what you're copying. You want to test it. See, that gives you it's like a bitty link. So it's a shortened link, let it load, and this is the first stage. Okay, here's your real link. Okay, brought you to a preview screen, and you want to click men's, obviously, and this is good. And another tip here, this is the model for the shoe, the SQU, and sometimes they have something, like it will say like affiliate, and it has a bunch of other stuff here. I normally like to just close that out because that just adds an extra step to the link. So you can delete it here. I always recommend closing it right after where it says the name of the shoe, low men's. You might be able to get away with doing something like this. Still works. I don't recommend it. So, yeah. So you want to get your link. I recommend using something like this. Okay, copy. Go back here. Now you have your direct link. And this link after .com is the identical one for all foot sites. So if I'm in a rush, sometimes I'll just change it to, instead of like foot action, I'll just change this to like Foot Locker if I'm running on Foot Locker. Okay, so there's your little setup here, and your checkout profiles stay the same. When it comes to proxies, you want to select all of these. You want to delete them because you don't want to be using proxies more than twice. You know, you don't want to risk a ban. That's not fun. Okay, so then you go to the second part of your list. So 251 all the way down to 500. Okay, copy that, paste it in there, import, speed test, you're at 250, and if you look at your profiles, 5 times 50 is 250, save this release, 250 and 250, so you know you're all set up, copy this, edit, Foot Locker. Foot Locker. Randomize the link to your global proxy. Checkout stays the same. Proxies stay the same. Obviously, I want to do a little speed test, make sure everything's running fine, and save it. So here's a quick setup that I would recommend and I would use for a foot site release. Highly recommend using dedicated because if you're using shared proxies, you know, another person could be using a 2-to-1 ratio setup or an even 1-to-1 ratio, and your whole list can get banned. It happened to me recently. So dedicated only is what I'd recommend. Your private proxy has been doing a good job recently. I've heard one complaint about a banned proxy from them, but other than that, they've been pretty solid. So yeah, if you want to go back to the beginning of this video to you know, like understand how many tasks you should run, you want to take your total amount of proxies, divide it by 2, and then divide that by the amount of cards you have. So if you have if I were to run 4 SoleSlayers and say I had 2,000 proxies, you know, divide that up across my 4 servers, back to 500 divided by 2. So it's all about just, you know, dividing them up equally and never going over the 2-to-1 ratio. Another example I could think of is maybe if you're doing a really small setup, if you're doing, say you're only doing, like, say 100, say you have 100, you bought 100 proxies, okay. You can use those proxies twice. So 50 on 4 sites, you can run 200 tasks. I'm pretty sure you guys can do the math from this point on. If you have 50 proxies for each site and you have 5 cards, you can run 10 tasks per profile. So that's where you just go here, change this to 10, make sure, you know, obviously you plug in your 50 proxies for here, save it, you know, obviously copy it, and you want your eSpay and champs to be identical in your foot action and foot locker. And that's not in any order, it's just the way Slayer setup, it's just convenient to connect these two. If you want to do a 1-to-1 ratio, you're going to be not running as many tasks as you could be, but you know, foot sites are getting a little bit more competitive, so I recommend 2-to-1 now. So yeah, if you have any other more questions, message me in the Slack. And this works for any bot. So honestly, if you're not running Slayer, if you're running, you know, any bot, better Nike bot, same scenario, easy cop, it doesn't matter. You want to use the same proxies at the most 2 times. So that should do it for this little quick explanation. Thanks.